And welcome, Denise Cortês. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you here on day 5 of the Future Law Virtual Summit, Negotiating the New Normal. We're going to be talking about Africa Rising, or I think the title might be Africanization.
Yes.
Africanization from plan to execution. Very curious, very much looking forward to that. Just a little bit about Denise. May I say Denise? Is that okay with you?
Yes, it's Denise. Yes.
Great. Denise is a Mozambican entrepreneur. She's a motivational speaker, finance and investments advisor, and former presenter, a TV presenter and exports leader. An accountant. She has an honors degree in management and a master's in corporate finance. And I'm only at the beginning of her bio. She's managed and advised several businesses and organizations in different sectors of such as international. She's also an international motivational speaker in subjects related to local content, entrepreneurship, women empowerment, and leadership. I think I'm gonna leave it at that for now, but I'm really curious about your talk. The format is you'll have about 15 minutes to share with us your perspective. And sometimes we go a little bit over if there's more to share. And we'll then open the floor up to questions from the audience and take it from there. I might have some questions for you too.
Perfect. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'll share my screen because I prepared the PowerPoint presentation. So let's see how things go. Can someone allow me to share screen?
We're working on that right as we speak. Rob, are you there? Can you take care of that for us? Yes, you can do it now.
Perfect. Can you see now? Okay.
It's starting up.
Okay.
And hopefully we get there very soon. Yes. We see your screen now. Okay. And it might be that you are on slide 5 and you might want to go to slide 1 maybe. Just checking.
Slide 1. Okay. I think it was me already reading and got stuck somewhere.
Good.
Okay. Something is taking a little bit of time. I don't know why, but it's coming. Okay. So let me go back to the beginning. There's a center, that's a waiting room. Okay, okay.
There are always the challenges with doing live things, huh?
Yes.
It's a live event. Take your time.
Okay.
It seems that the computer's struggling a little bit with maybe some of the programs that are open. Zoom does tend to take a little bit of your disk space.
Yeah. Maybe, but it's okay. It's almost there. Ah, why? Okay, it's almost there.
Would it help? Do you have a lot of programs open? That seems to always do the trick on my computer, that I have too many computers open and just programs open, it slows it down, Zoom and PowerPoint.
Okay, maybe it's too much devices connected to the internet. Let me switch off all the devices. So
great. We're seeing the first page now.
Yeah, it's the first page.
So thanks for bearing with us, audience. Sometimes these things happen. We're really
it's okay. I think everyone is familiar with this type of thing.
Yes. It's been that way for quite some time.
So
thank you. Go ahead. I'll give you the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. The title of my presentation is Africanization from Plan to Execution. For many years, Africa was seen as the green field for many industries, for many countries, and for all the continents around us. We have been exporting raw materials and mineral resources to the rest of the world and importing finished goods and service. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a free trade area which, as of 2018, included 28 countries. It was created by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement among 54 of the 55 African Union nations. The free trade area is the largest in the world in terms of number of participating countries since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Okay, next. Why is it taking so long? Okay, let's see. Next. Sorry, something is happening. Okay. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is the agreement signed by the African countries that initially requires members to remove tariffs from 90% of goods, allowing free access to commodities, goods, and services across the continent. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa estimates that the agreement will boost intra-African trade by 52% by 2022. This estimation was done before COVID-19. Most probably the plans changed. A look into the African Continental Free Trade Area. The following can support the need for an African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Leveraging economic size and economies of scale of African countries, industrialization of the countries in the African continent, increasing internal production of goods and services for the continent, market growth in the African continent, which is equal to opportunity for African businesses, African economies less dependent on the mineral resources with more diversified sectors of activity, higher levels of employment by reducing gender inequalities, promoting and formalize women traders in key sectors, unified trade policy for countries in Africa. Move to the next. Promoting intra-African trade. The true size of Africa. I don't know if the public is familiar with the continent, but in Africa, we can, China can fit in Africa, US can fit in Africa, Eastern Europe can fit in Africa, India can fit in Africa. So we are large continents. In terms of culture, we have diversified culture. The continent was colonized by different countries. We speak different language, from Portuguese, English, French, different language. And what happened is that through the years post independence, we have different agreements between the countries, bilateral agreements from SADC region, for example, where I'm located, Southern Africa region. We have COMESA, we have different organizations that regulate the trade and the relationship between the countries. So speaking about this African Union Agreement for Trade is something that requires a lot of work in terms of culture, in terms of strategy, and in terms of vision for each country, because we don't have a federation. We have different countries with different rules, different policies, and any change that can happen in the continent needs to be well coordinated. Africa's economic growth and development is highly impacted by the historic high levels of export of non-manufactured goods to outside the continent and relatively low level of intra-regional trade. Even if allowance is made for Africa's unrecorded informal cross-border trade, the total level of intra-African trade is not likely to be more than 20%, which is still lower than that of other major regions of the world. If we see, for example, this data from the World Bank, manufacturing value added to GDP, we will see that industrialization didn't have too much impact in the African GDP. It had impact in the US, in America, in India, and other markets, but for us, little was improved. Even in terms of intra-trade in the continent, we are only 13%, even if we have 1.2 billion people. An African market integration would promote economies of scale and help increase the levels of employment and increase on the intra-African demand and supply of goods and service, reduction of the levels of exports of primary commodities to outside the continent, import substitution from the outside of the continent. These measures would reduce market volatility and promote more friendly trade policies. We are not in the same boat. We are all in the same storm, because if you compare Mozambican economy with South Africa, we are totally different. Even if they just around the corner, they are our neighbors. We cannot compare with them at the moment. Promoting intra-African trade is done by 7 clusters, which is trade finance, trade facilitation, trade policy, trade-related infrastructure, trade information, productive capacities, and factor market integration. So who's going to benefit from this? Where, who, and how? This agreement was signed by 54 countries out of 55, excluding Eritrea, which is, as of January 2020, 30 had ratified it, previously planned the dismantling of tariffs on goods traded under this agreement by July 1st this year. Regional groups are working to prepare their tariff offers, which products will be liberated by July 2020. These dates were before COVID-19. Most probably something changed. The Niamey Summit also launched the complementary initiatives to support the implementation of this agreement. The agreement has product specific rules of origin covering 90% of tariff lines, continental online mechanism for monitoring, reporting, and eliminating non-tariff barriers, Pan-African payments and settlement systems, online portal for trade in goods tariff negotiations, African Union Trade Observatory. Why is this not moving? Next. The implementation of this agreement will affect trading business. Will not be at once, because this reduction on the 90% of goods traded between the countries will occur in the first 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, until we reach 2025. A special dispensation from these modalities is for G6, which is Ethiopia, Madagascar, Malawi, Sudan, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, that will reduce tariffs on 90% of goods over the longer period of 15 years. For service suppliers seeking new markets, now we go to equality or equity. Liberalization is expected to initially cover 5 sectors: business service, communication service, financial service, tourism and travel related service, and transport service. Equal condition when companies compete in the market. For local content measures, things will change. The removal of limitations on participation of foreign capital in terms of maximum percentage limits on foreign shareholding, limitations on the total number of foreign employees, and even limitations on the total value of service transaction or assets. Reciprocity. Are we going to have reciprocity with the markets that will start trading with us? Are we going to have reciprocity with the US, with Europe, with Asia, with Australia? We don't know. For international investors, governments have created incentives to attract more investments, and African private sector is open for business. Participation of investors in industrialization of the continent, establishment of a local company is necessary, and partnerships with African businesses as well. For the success of this agreement, the fundamental condition is indigenization of each of 54 economies. Accelerate the creation of interregional common trade mechanisms for competing products through an intra-African commodity exchange markets. because sometimes it's very difficult for countries to supply at once one good, for example, sugar. It can be done like with a quota from Mozambique, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, for example, supplying to Nigeria. And then we should find a way that this same commodities can be exchanged, for example, for gold or for oil. So something has to be done in terms of how we're going to trade commodities without putting money on it. So this is something that maybe they should analyze as well. It's necessary to stipulate the date when African countries should stop exporting raw materials to outside the continent, and they start industrializing first, because industrialization is necessary. Industrialization of the continent through capital transferred from the state to local entrepreneurs and business people. One of the biggest handicap for doing business for nationals is access to finance, access to capital. When investors come, they come with the money, but at a lower cost from their markets, like less than 1% most probably. And for us can go up to 30, 32%. How can we compete? Which type of balance are we creating in the market? Are we creating balance, or are we creating barriers? So this should be analyzed by each state to find ways to support local entrepreneurs and business people. State-owned companies should be managed similar to private companies. This will bring transparency and accountability, because they're managing people's money. So they need to be accountable for the things that they do, and they need to justify their communities, what are they doing? Opportunities for partnerships for large infrastructure projects should be open for national and international capital. Because what is happening now is that governments are going abroad and get loans to support infrastructure projects. The companies that come to provide the service are international companies. The money is from abroad. They need to pay abroad. We just stay with the infrastructure. Nothing is staying locally to add value to the local entrepreneurs and local companies. Things should change. We cannot continue that way. African countries could inventory their similar and competitive products and services. As part of development of the free trade agreement, these countries should have a commercial body where all the production should be traded. This way, we can have critical quantity in the market and influence international prices. Because at the moment, okay, the commodities are being quoted in the stock markets, in the commodity markets. We don't know what is the foundation, what is the basis for the prices that are being quoted. We need to have something to say. Africa has something to say. If the commodities are being taken here, we should have ways to express ourselves and say, we don't agree with this price. This price doesn't benefit our market. So we need to find ways to negotiate better. The free trade agreement is clear that we cannot export raw material. You urge the need to transform raw material in semi-transformed goods to be able to export. The most important variable in all this forthcoming process is human capital. We should remember that the 55 African countries each have a young population, future leaders and consumers. The government should provide health and education with equality to majority of the population. Thank you. Obrigado. So my presentation is finished.
Yeah, thank you very much, Denise. And to all of you listening, please, if you have questions, place them in the chat, and we can, or you could actually even unmute now. We can and ask any questions you have. I do have a question. It struck me all through your presentation, and I guess towards the end I made the conclusion. Is free trade the right? A free trade agreement, is that the right terminology we'd want to use for this? I was almost thinking maybe something like an equitable trade agreement. That slide that you had, equality versus equity, was I thought was very, very, very revealing. It's the one that stuck in my head, and so I know some of the context. I know that you know, China, as many other Western countries in the past, is investing heavily in the African continent with any, you could argue, with disregard for the local context, the local market. Like you said towards the end, local entrepreneurs. How does well, I guess there's two questions in there. How does this free trade agreement learn from all the mistakes that we've made with free trade agreements, or we in the West, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, have made with free trade agreements throughout the decades? And that's one question, I guess. And then the second question how does this agreement take the local context into account and deal with these heavy investments that are really destabilizing markets?
Okay, sharing the experience from my market. We discovered oil and gas. We have huge reserves. There's a lot of expectation. I think we celebrated earlier than expected, because when we started celebrating the discoveries, then the market started going down. So the same way we have large quantities of oil and gas, we have coal, we have diamonds, we have precious stones, we have so many things that I think that if Mozambique could evaluate the real value of the country today, we would say that we are wealthy. But the biggest thing is the fact that we don't have access to finance. It's very difficult to empower local entrepreneurs if you don't open shares in the business so that they can start learning from the ones that know, or the ones that have been doing for longer. And they start learning how these markets operate, how this sector of activity operate. And if indigenization of the continent doesn't happen for the countries, what is left? Potholes in the continent. People come and dig and take and go, and then leave coins. And we have another big issue, is that double taxation agreements that Africa has signed with the rest of the world is not allowing us to keep the right income that these sectors of activity generate. We have double taxation agreements. We have tax benefits for investors that sometimes can last 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, not paying taxes. They just employ locals, but small amount of locals for not money that you can quantify. That's something that is really adding value to the market. And now comes the free trade agreement. If investors come, they need to be treated as a national. So it means that they start comparing with us, while their cost of money comes very cheap. So we need to find ways to create, okay, equity, equality, something needs to be done, because the way it is planned won't work, unfortunately. It is going to break, because you cannot compare, for example, Nigerian economy with Malawi. Yeah, we need to find a common ground to operate. What happened in the other markets, for example, the European markets, we don't have the experience from the others, because we have centuries of colonization. We cannot quantify yet how much colonization destroyed us. And we cannot allow anymore to come another colonization in the form of investment that will dig the rest of the resources and leave nothing for us.
I totally understand that. I mean, that's maybe why I suggested let's not go down the route of free trade, because how free trade is defined by so many here I would argue neoliberal economists would do away with all the barriers. You kind of want to create an equitable market. That was a comment. I'm sorry. I get really engaged with this subject matter.
No, I'm very much passionate about Africa, so I'm very African.
Yeah. Edward, you have a question. You raised your hand. Please unmute and take it away.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thanks. This is Edward from Zambia.
Yes, Edward.
Yeah, I do believe, what we need to work on, first thing, we need to fight corruption amongst ourselves. Because I look at these so-called investors that are coming to Africa to develop. What basically they do, they would come and corrupt the politicians. They get the projects, and these projects, when they finance them, that money doesn't come to Africa. And they'll make sure that the money goes back to where it is coming from. At the end of the day, our people, the locals, they don't develop. So in that case, what happens is that when the people are not developed, or whatever projects are not being done in that local country or community, the locals are not participating. So how do we pay back the loans if we can't invest back into the people so that they can have the capacity to start generating money and maybe probably contribute to the pool of taxpayers' money to the government so that the government can pay back the money. So it falls on leadership. If we change our mindset and believe that Africa is not a poor continent, it's the poor mindset that we have. And I look sometimes at our education system. We talk too much, but we act less. I think we need to start changing and understand the value of the things that we have. That's when you're going to add value to Africa. So most of the things, probably from China, they come with, for me, I call them investors, actually, not investors, because what they're doing is they come with the money, and the money goes back to China. They leave us with buildings. Then, so what? That's my contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I agree with you.
Go ahead. Sorry, Denise, I talked through you. Please go ahead. Do you want to react to that?
I'm just saying that I agree with him. Unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other remarks or questions? I think we have time for one more. If not from the audience, I know I have a question. Michael. Michael's asking, what is the risk of the Belt and Road Initiative? What are the risks with that?
One Belt, One Road from China.
Yeah, I think he means that. Yeah.
Okay, the $60 billion plan. If we, I may be wrong. I may be wrong, but if we analyze the way China invests, they invest in infrastructure. They invest in ports. They invest in airports. They invest in bridges and roads. So it means that they invest in ways to facilitate the export of something. Raw materials need to come out. So they invest in the means that they will use to export. And they are quite sure that African countries are so highly geared that they are not capable to pay back. So they come with friendly way, it's their way, they're negotiators, and they get the best because they find you starving, they find you willing to do something, they find you willing to show the people that what you promised during campaign, you're going to deliver. And then you find yourself in a position where you have no choice. You need to deliver. And the cheapest money is Chinese money, but it comes with a cost. And the cost is that if you don't pay, the bridge belongs to them. If you don't pay, they will put a toll gate on your road and they will start charging for the toll gate. And when Africa wake up, unfortunately, there will be a second colony of someone else. I won't say that it's going to be a Chinese colony, but one of the points that I also say is that everyone has a plan for Africa. You find US Africa Summit, UK Africa Summit, Russia Africa Summit, but you don't find Africa Summit because Africa is not discussing their own priorities. They're not discussing their own plans. They're discussing with someone else their plans. So someone else is free to say their terms to make Africa's dream happen in a way that they can benefit as well. I think the paradigm should change from victim to victorious because we cannot blame the negotiators to come and take the best of us. We should start looking at ourselves in a way that we change the way we think about ourselves. We change the way we negotiate. We say, hey, hello, stop there. Let me evaluate myself for the next 2-3 years or whatever. And then let me see how my pockets are and let me settle my debts. Let me find a way to renegotiate debts. And let me stop this doable taxation agreements that is not adding value to Africa. Because for many years we have been celebrating sovereign funds and so on. We're going to set up sovereign funds. We're going to set up sovereign funds. But then was created double taxation agreement. The investors are coming here with other plans, and then End of the year, we need to transfer the money. What is left for sovereign fund? Nothing. I think it's time for Africa to wake up. We are not victims. We are not colonies anymore. We are free countries. We have the right to say, we don't know this. We need to learn how to do it. This doesn't serve me anymore. I need to find a better solution. And if I don't find it, I'll do it myself. So I don't expect China to save us. China also wants them to win. We need to win as well. And we need to set our terms in the market. I think that's my opinion.
That certainly sounds like negotiating the new normal to me, Denise.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for that very strong call to action at the end and that invitation. Time to wake up. There are many lawyers and legal experts and system change agents and systems innovators from Africa in this collaborative, and that collaborative is growing. So we invite you to engage with us over the coming weeks and months and figure out how we might bring about the kind of changes you are pointing towards. Thank you very much again for your talk and your engagement with us.